Commander Krax Varan stood at attention, his forearms clasped behind his back as he surveyed the latest batch of cadets at the Galactic Defense Academy. His silver-scaled skin reflected the harsh artificial lighting of the training chamber, and his third eye twitched with barely concealed annoyance. These were supposed to be the finest specimens from across the known galaxy? Hey, what a joke. Listen up, you pathetic excuse for future defenders, he barked, his translator perfectly conveying his disdain in all 27 official languages of the Alliance. You're here because your species think you're special. Well, guess what? At the Academy, you're all equally worthless until proven otherwise. His gaze swept across the assembly of beings. There were the usual suspects, the towering Chronaxians with their crystalline exoskeletons, a couple of psychically gifted Mentari floating slightly above the ground, and even a contingent of the silicon-based Petrovi, their rocky forms casting impressive shadows. But then, oh, by the seven suns, what was that doing here? Among the assembled elite stood a human. A human. Barely 5.5 feet tall, soft-skinned, and completely lacking any natural defenses. Commander Varan's secondary hearts nearly stopped from the absurdity. The human female stood in the third row, her dark hair pulled back in what he assumed was their species' attempt at military precision. Her name tag read Martinez Alexandra. You there, human Varan pointed with his lower right arm while using his upper arms to input commands into the holoscreen. Step forward. The human Alexandra Martinez moved with surprising grace, her movements fluid despite the Academy's 1.3 standard gravity setting. Her face remained impassive, but Varan's thermal sensors detected a slight increase in her body temperature. Anxiety? Good. Can someone explain to me, Varan addressed the group, his voice dripping with sarcasm, how this specimen managed to pass the entrance trials? Perhaps the testing parameters need recalibration. A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled cadets. The Chronaxians' crystals chimed with their version of laughter, while the Mentari's psychic mirth manifested as small purple sparks in the air. Martinez remained at attention, her brown eyes fixed straight ahead. Was that a slight smile at the corner of her mouth? Something amusing. Cadet Martinez Varan loomed over her, using all four arms to gesture expansively. Perhaps you'd like to share with the class what a species that only achieved spaceflight 3 decades ago finds so entertaining about the galaxy's premier military academy. No, sir, Martinez replied crisply. Just appreciating the irony of being judged by appearances at an institution that claims to value tactical innovation above all else, sir. The chamber fell silent. Even the naturally luminescent Fatari dimmed in shock. In his 15 cycles as an instructor, Commander Varan had never the sheer audacity. Yet before he could respond, his datapad chimed with an incoming priority message. His third eye focused on the text, while his main eyes remained locked on the human. The message was from High Command, marked Urgent Commander Varan. Cadet Martinez's presence is a direct initiative from the Alliance Council. Her performance will be monitored with great interest. Ensure all standard protocols are followed. Varan's scales rippled with suppressed emotion. This training cycle just got much more interesting. The training chamber buzzed with activity as cadets prepared for their first assessment. Nexus Prime, top cadet from the crystalline race of Chronaxians, towered over his assigned sparring partner with obvious disdain. They have given me the human? This is an insult to my combat rating. Commander Varan watched through his thermal imaging sensors as the human cadet approached the sparring circle. His third eye caught every detail of her movements, analyzing, assessing. There was something about her stance that seemed familiar. Martinez, he called out, mandibles clicking in thought. Your file says you're the offspring of Colonel Isabella Martinez, the same Colonel Martinez who led the defense of Terra Station during the swarm incursion. A collective murmur rippled through the chamber. Even the silicon-based Petrovi, normally stoic as the rocks they resembled, shifted their crystalline forms with interest. Yes, Commander Alex replied, her voice steady. Though I prefer to earn my own reputation. Varan's scales rippled in what passed for amusement among his species. Your maternal predecessor survived 12 hours in vacuum, using nothing but a damaged pressure suit and human ingenuity. Yet here you stand, barely able to handle our standard gravity. The Mentari twins, Sif and Zara, floated closer, their telepathic whispers carrying just loud enough to be heard. Did you know humans have to sleep for 8 standard hours? Every single day? How primitive. Actually, Alex adjusted her gravity compensators with practiced ease. We use that time to process complex problems subconsciously. You'd be surprised what solutions can come in dreams. Dreams, Nexus Prime scoffed, his crystalline form glinting under the harsh lights. We're here to become warriors, not philosophers. Commander, surely the physical trials will prove what we all know. Humans simply aren't built for modern combat. Varan activated the training chamber's environmental controls. The gravity increased to 2G, the temperature dropped to near freezing, and the oxygen levels thinned to what most species would consider critical. Standard training conditions, optimized for the majority of advanced species in the Alliance. Today's challenge is simple, Varan announced, all 4 arms inputting commands into the control panel. Survival exercises under varying planetary conditions. We'll start with environments that would be lethal to most carbon-based life forms. The Petrovi cadets rumbled with satisfaction. The Mentari twins practically glowed with confidence. Even the usually stoic Fatari seemed to pulse brighter, their natural bioluminescence reflecting their anticipation. Alex checked her environmental suit's seals, her movements precise despite the crushing gravity. Varan noted how she positioned herself, analyzing sight lines and exit routes, just like her mother had done all those years ago. Commander, she called out, that same infuriating hint of a smile playing at her lips. Request permission to remove gravity compensators. The chamber fell silent. Even Nexus Prime's crystalline form stopped its habitual humming. Removing compensators under these conditions would put extreme stress on your inferior human physiology, Varan stated flatly. Request denied. Respectfully, sir, how can I prove human adaptability if I'm not allowed to adapt? Varan's third eye focused intently on her vital signs. No fear response, steady heartbeat, elevated but controlled adrenaline levels, just like her mother indeed. Very well, Martinez. Your funeral rites will be conducted according to human customs. Commander Varan hovered near the observation deck of the 0G combat chamber, his anti-grav implants humming softly. Below him, the massive spherical arena sparkled with holographic obstacles, creating a 3-dimensional battlefield that would challenge even veteran soldiers. Begin simulation asteroid field combat scenario, he announced, watching as the cadets took their starting positions. Victory conditions: incapacitate your opponent or force them to exit the combat zone. Weapons are set to training mode. Nexus Prime's crystalline form glittered menacingly as he faced off against Martinez. The Chronaxian had specifically requested this match, claiming it would prove once and for all the superiority of evolved species over primitive humans. Combat commencing in 3, 2, 1, engage. Nexus immediately launched himself forward, his crystalline limbs extending into razor-sharp points. In zero gravity, his species' natural ability to reflect light created dazzling patterns designed to disorient opponents. A standard Chronaxian technique that had won them countless space battles. But Martinez did something unexpected. She closed her eyes. What is this foolishness? Varan muttered, watching through his thermal sensors. The human cadet had pushed off from her starting position with minimal force, letting momentum carry her behind a holographic asteroid. Nexus pursued, his crystalline form splitting into dozens of razor-sharp shards, another Chronaxian combat technique that made them nearly impossible to engage in 0G. Running already, human? Your kind always does. Actually, Martinez's voice echoed through the chamber. I'm counting. Counting. Nexus reassembled himself, scanning the battlefield. Counting what? The resonance frequency of your crystal structure. You might want to move about 3 meters to your left. Nexus laughed, his form splitting again. Your pathetic attempts at psychological warfare are. A massive holographic asteroid slammed into his position. Martinez had used her initial momentum to set up a chain reaction in the simulation's physics engine. Nexus barely dodged, his shards reforming hastily. Impossible, he snarled. How did you calculate the orbital trajectories without a targeting computer? Martinez emerged from behind another asteroid, moving with surprising grace. Humans played a game called billiards for centuries. Same principle, just in 3 dimensions. Also, you might want to watch your left side again. Nexus spun just in time to see 3 smaller asteroids converging on his position. He split his form to dodge, but Martinez had anticipated this. Her training weapon fired 3 precise shots through the gaps in his dispersed form, each blast tuned to the exact frequency she'd been calculating. The effect was devastating. The energy pulses set up a resonance cascade through Nexus's crystalline structure. Not enough to harm him, but more than sufficient to disrupt his ability to maintain combat form. Sonic wavelength manipulation, she explained, smoothly navigating through the debris field she'd created. We humans still use crystalline wine glasses at formal events. Fascinating how certain frequencies can affect crystal structures, isn't it? Nexus tried to reform, but his shards moved sluggishly, still vibrating from the perfectly tuned shots. This is not proper combat. You're using tricks. Proper combat. Martinez landed a final shot that sent Nexus tumbling toward the arena boundary. Sorry, I must have missed that in the rulebook. You know, while I was busy surviving with my inferior human physiology. Commander Varan's third eye widened as Nexus crossed the boundary line, triggering the automatic end of the match. The chamber fell silent. The Mentari twins had stopped their telepathic commentary. Even the Petrovi seemed frozen in disbelief. Match concluded, Varan announced, his voice carefully neutral. Victory to Cadet Martinez through ring-out and opponent incapacitation. Martinez saluted crisply, still floating perfectly oriented despite the zero-G environment. Request permission to assist Cadet Nexus with resonance stabilization, sir. I believe a frequency of 432 Hz should help his structure realign. Granted, Varan replied, watching as she moved to help her defeated opponent. His scales rippled with an emotion he couldn't quite identify. The human hadn't just won, she'd turned every perceived disadvantage into a tactical advantage. Perhaps, he mused, watching Martinez help a humbled Nexus Prime realign his crystal structure. They had all underestimated more than just her physical capabilities. The datapad on his command console blinked with another priority message from High Command, but for once Commander Varan already knew what it would say. The Academy's nutrient distribution center hummed with activity as various species consumed their specialized sustenance. Commander Varan observed from his monitoring station as the Mentari twins, Sif and Zara, huddled with a group of Fatari cadets, their bioluminescence dimmed to avoid attention. The human has made us look foolish. Sef's telepathic whisper carried just enough for Varan's enhanced hearing to detect, especially after what she did to Nexus Prime. She cannot be allowed to participate in the final challenge, Zara added, her form pulsing with barely contained anger. Our species' reputation is at stake. The Fatari cadet, Lumos, glowed in agreement. My contacts in maintenance can adjust the environmental controls during her next training session. Nothing fatal, just enough to prove humans aren't ready for deep space combat. Varan's scales rippled with concern. His third eye caught movement. Nexus Prime approaching the group, his crystalline form still showing slight imperfections from the zero-G battle. Discussing Martinez, Nexus asked, his voice carrying an unexpected tone. The other cadets shifted uncomfortably. Nexus, we were just planning to. Sef began, but the Chronaxian cut him off. To sabotage her environmental controls. How remarkably primitive of you. Nexus's crystal structure caught the light, creating a disapproving rainbow effect. You know, after our combat session, she spent 3 hours helping me understand the resonance principles she used. Did any of you realize humans develop spaceflight without natural abilities like ours? Varan adjusted his position, all 4 arms clasped behind his back. This was unexpected. She's still just a human, Lumos protested, his glow intensifying. She got lucky once. Luck, Nexus laughed, the sound chiming through his crystal form. She calculated complex orbital mechanics in her head while simultaneously analyzing my structural frequency. That's not luck, that's skill we never bothered to respect. The Mentari twins exchanged glances. You're defending her now? After she humiliated you. She didn't humiliate me, Nexus corrected. She outperformed me. There's a difference. And if you proceed with your sabotage plan, I will personally report it to Commander Varan. Commander Varan watched as the group dispersed, his third eye tracking their movements while his main eyes focused on Nexus. The Chronaxian cadet moved through the facility, eventually reaching Martinez's isolated table. Cadet Martinez, Nexus addressed her formally. The resonance techniques you taught me have improved my combat efficiency by 23%. Martinez looked up from her nutrient paste, surprised. Glad I could help. though I'm pretty sure sharing combat tips with your competition isn't standard protocol. Standard protocol also doesn't account for humans solving complex physics equations while in active combat. Nexus responded, his crystal structure humming softly. Consider this a warning. Watch your environmental readings during the next training session. Voran noted how Martinez didn't seem surprised by the warning. Already on it, she said, pulling out a data pad. Been running diagnostics on my suit since day one. But thanks, Nexus. Didn't expect a Chronaxian to have my back. Yes, well, Nexus's form shifted colors slightly, a sign of embarrassment in his species. Perhaps it's time we all adjusted our expectations. The commander's datapad chirped again, another message from High Command. But for once, he ignored it, too focused on the scene unfolding before him. In 15 cycles of training galactic warriors, he'd never seen a Chronaxian willingly share a table with a being they considered inferior. As he watched Martinez explaining something to Nexus using her eating utensils as props, Voran realized the final challenge might prove more interesting than anyone had anticipated. The Academy's grand arena stretched before them. A massive complex capable of simulating any combat environment in the known galaxy. Commander Voran stood at the control center, his third eye scanning the assembled dignitaries from various Alliance worlds. Even the Petrovi High Command had sent representatives, their rocky forms taking up considerable space in the observation deck. The final challenge consists of 3 stages, Voran announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. Survival, combat, and strategy. Only the top 4 cadets have qualified: Sif of the Mentari, Lumos of the Fatari, Nexus Prime of the Chronaxians, and... He paused briefly. Alexandra Martinez of Earth. The first stage transformed the arena into a hellscape. Gravity shifted randomly between 0 and 3 times standard. Temperature fluctuated between extreme heat and cold. The atmosphere itself became a toxic mixture that would challenge even the most advanced environmental suits. Begin survival stage, Voran commanded. The Mentari cadet, Sif, immediately encased himself in a psychic bubble, a natural defense against environmental extremes. Lumos adapted by shifting his photonic form to match the changing conditions. Nexus Prime's crystalline structure transformed to resist the temperature variations. Martinez, however, did something that made Voran's scales stand on end. She deliberately vented her suit's atmosphere. "What is she doing?" one of the Petrovi observers rumbled. "That's suicide." But Martinez was moving with purpose, using the venting atmosphere as propulsion in the shifting gravity. She navigated between environmental hazards with precise bursts, conserving her remaining air supply while others wasted energy fighting the conditions directly. "Fascinating," Nexus commented from his position. "She's using the hostile environment itself as a resource." The survival stage ended with all 4 cadets still standing, though Martinez's innovative approach had consumed the least energy. Voran noted her oxygen levels were still at 62% higher than anyone had predicted. Combat stage, Voran announced. The arena shifted again, becoming a labyrinth of shifting barriers and weapon emplacements. Team combat. Martinez and Nexus versus Sif and Lumos. The Mentari-Fatari combination was considered nearly unbeatable. Sif's psychic abilities complemented Lumos's light-based attacks perfectly. They moved as one unit, laying down suppressing fire while probing for weaknesses. But Martinez had done her homework. She pulled out what looked like an ancient human device, a simple mirror attached to her weapon. Nexus understood immediately, adjusting his crystalline structure to work in concert with it. "Prism defense formation," Martinez called out. Nexus's body split into precisely arranged shards, each catching light from Martinez's mirror. When Lumos launched his next attack, the energy was caught, amplified, and redirected through Nexus's crystal matrix. The resultant feedback loop overwhelmed Lumos's photonic sensors. Sif's psychic shield faltered under the sensory assault, leaving both vulnerable to a perfectly timed takedown shot from Martinez. "Impressive," the Petrovi observer rumbled. The human understood that light-based beings can be overwhelmed by their own energy if properly reflected. But it was the final stage strategy that truly silenced the critics. The arena became a holographic command center, simulating a full-scale space battle. Each cadet had to coordinate fleet movements against an AI opponent using actual battle data from historical conflicts. Nexus Prime moved his ships into a standard Chronaxian crystal formation. Sif attempted psychic prediction of enemy movements. Lumos used light speed calculations for targeting solutions. Martinez stood still for a full minute, studying the tactical display. Then she did something that made Commander Varan check his systems for malfunctions. She surrendered half her fleet. Cadet Martinez Varan barked, "Explain your actions." "Reading the enemy, sir," she replied calmly, fingers dancing over the tactical controls. "They're using adaptive AI based on our own tactics. So I gave them exactly what they expected: predictable human behavior." The surrendered ships, it turned out, had been rigged to emit false signals that confused the AI's targeting systems. While the computer focused on securing its apparent victory, Martinez's remaining forces executed a series of maneuvers that no tactical AI would predict because they were based on ancient human naval warfare. Crossing the T in three-dimensional space, she explained as her forces broke through the AI's defenses. Admiral Nelson would be proud, though he probably never imagined it in 0G. The simulation ended with Martinez's forces achieving total victory, using fewer resources and taking fewer losses than any other cadet. The observation deck erupted in murmurs of disbelief and grudging admiration. Varan's third eye focused on the tactical replay, while his main eyes studied Martinez. She stood at attention, that same slight smile playing at her lips. "Your unconventional tactics," he noted, "they're based on historical human battles." "Yes, sir." Turns out space warfare isn't so different from naval combat. The basics of strategy don't change just because you add another dimension. The Petrovi observer shifted forward. "You intentionally appeared weak to draw out your opponent's strength." An ancient human general named Sun Tzu wrote that over 3,000 years ago, Martinez replied, "Along with the wisdom that supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting." Commander Varan's scales rippled with what might have been approval. The final challenge had revealed more than just combat capability. It had demonstrated the danger of underestimating any species, no matter how primitive they might appear. His datapad chirped yet again with a message from High Command, but this time he already knew exactly what it would say. Commander Varan stood in the center of the arena, all four arms holding different weapons, his scaled armor gleaming under the harsh lights. The observation deck was packed with every cadet and dignitary, all watching in stunned silence as Martinez stepped forward to face him. "The final test is simple," Varan announced, his third eye fixed on the human cadet. "Defeat me in combat. No restrictions, no rules, no limits. Show us why humans deserve a place among the stars." Martinez gave a crisp salute. "Permission to use non-standard equipment, sir." Varan's scales rippled in amusement. "Granted, though I doubt any human technology will help against 3 decades of combat experience." Martinez pulled out what appeared to be an ancient paper book. The Mentari twins exchanged confused glances. Even Nexus Prime's crystalline form vibrated with uncertainty. "Sun Tzu again?" Varan asked, weapons humming to life. "No, sir. This time it's human chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov. He said something interesting about playing against superior opponents." Martinez tossed the book high into the air. Varan's multiple eyes tracked it automatically, a warrior's instinct to watch for threats. In that split second, Martinez moved. She fired 3 shots from her training weapon, not at Varan, but at the arena's environmental controls. The gravity plating directly under the commander surged, creating a localized field that threw off his balance. His superior alien physiology, usually an advantage, now worked against him as his 4 arms tried to compensate for the sudden shift. "Clever," Varan growled, regaining his stance. But not enough. He launched a barrage of energy bolts from all 4 weapons simultaneously. Martinez didn't dodge. Instead, she activated what looked like a small handheld fan. The simple device created just enough air current to affect the trajectory of the energy bolts in the destabilized gravity field. "Newton's laws of motion," she explained, closing distance. "They work the same everywhere, even in space." Varan's third eye widened as he realized her strategy. She wasn't trying to overpower him, she was using his own superior capabilities against him. Each of his 4 arms operated independently, but that meant each one had to adjust separately to the changing conditions. "You've studied my combat footage," he said, launching into a complex attack pattern. Every recording available, Martinez confirmed, weaving through his strikes with practiced precision. "You favor your upper right arm for initial strikes, compensate with lower left for defense, and used the remaining 2 for follow-up attacks. She moved like water, never meeting force with force, redirecting rather than blocking. Her movements were economical, efficient, using Varan's own momentum to throw him off balance. The commander brought all 4 weapons to bear for a final, overwhelming assault. But Martinez had been waiting for exactly this moment. She threw her fan up, triggering its emergency power cell. The explosion was minimal, but the electromagnetic pulse perfectly timed. For just a fraction of a second, Varan's weapons lost power. In that moment, Martinez struck. A simple leg sweep, combined with the destabilized gravity, sent the commander crashing to the deck. Before he could recover, she had all 4 of his arms pinned using their own strength against each other, her training weapon pressed against his central nerve cluster. The arena fell silent, except for Martinez's steady breathing. "Well done, Commander," she said quietly. "Thank you for teaching me how to think like a warrior." Varan's scales rippled with what could only be described as pride. "No, Cadet Martinez. Thank you for teaching us how to think like humans." The graduation ceremony of the Galactic Defense Academy took on a historic significance that even Commander Varan's third eye couldn't fully process. The assembled cadets stood at attention as high command representatives from every alliance species filled the grand hall. It seems the Petrovi High Commander rumbled, his rocky form casting impressive shadows across the stage, that we have all been guilty of a serious tactical error. We assumed technological advancement was the only measure of a species' worth. Martinez stood at the center of the stage, her cadet uniform now bearing the distinctive marks of top graduate. Next to her, Nexus Prime's crystalline form glowed with genuine respect. In just one training cycle, Varan addressed the assembly, all 4 arms gesturing for emphasis. Cadet Martinez has not only matched but exceeded our highest standards, not through superior biology or advanced technology, but through the one thing we never thought to measure: pure human ingenuity. The Mentari twins floated forward, their previous hostility replaced with grudging admiration. "We formally request human tactical advisors for our orbital defense forces," they announced in unison. "As do we," Lumos added, his photonic form pulsing brightly. "The humans' understanding of light dynamics alone could revolutionize our combat doctrine." Commander Varan's scales rippled with satisfaction as he read the final message from High Command. The Alliance Council has unanimously approved the expansion of human enrollment at all military academies. Furthermore, Cadet Alexandra Martinez will be promoted directly to combat instructor. Martinez stepped forward to accept her new rank insignia. "Thank you, sir. Though I hope everyone remembers the most important lesson here isn't about humans at all." Varan's third eye focused on her curiously. "It's about the danger of underestimating any species, anywhere." After all, she added with that now familiar slight smile, "The next surprise might not come from someone as friendly as US humans."